Skipping Through Theatre podcast with Nathan and Maddie.
Hello and welcome back to another Skipping Through Theatre episode. Today our special guest is Christopher Lee Power.
Some of his credits include Kinky Boots, BBC Film, Hollyoaks, Coronation Street and Brookside.
We are very excited to interview him on today's episode, so let's begin.
Hi Christopher, how are you?
Good. And you know what? The sun was shining today. How wonderful.
Yes.
Let's start with a
Definitely.
fun question.
Okay.
Are there any hidden talents you have that people might be surprised to know about?
You know what? There is, because when I was growing up, I had a mentor. His name was Ron. And we used to watch, I'll talk more about Ron later, but he was my mentor. We used to watch the British films with Richard Burton, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, and one of them was Brian Blessed. And I decided, because he's a big character, he was in Flash Gordon, to impersonate Brian Blessed. And that's what I have been doing for many, many years. And that may come as a surprise to many, but I love impersonating Brian Blessed. I even do it on my TikTok. So it's like a party piece and people love it. So yes, that will surprise a lot of people.
So how did your career in acting begin?
Okay, so let's go back to the 1970s. As a child, I was sadly diagnosed with hyperactivity, speech problems, and lack of coordination, which meant I found it very difficult at school and I struggled. And so I was sent off to a hospital where I had speech therapy. I didn't like it much, but when I came out, I could go back to my school and they'd give me medication. I was overcoming hyperactivity. And when I got to school after missing it for about 6 months, I remember being cast in Scrooge, A Christmas Carol. And we performed it in the lecture theatre, which is a very old Victorian lecture theatre that was part of the school. And I remember putting on the little bobble hat, scarf, and woolly jumper. And what really got to me emotionally was the fact that I wasn't very good at other subjects. But as soon as I started performing, playing the little boy that goes and buys the turkey for Scrooge, I felt an overwhelming joy that this is what I wanted to do in my life. And it was like the acorn of acting. And I knew deep down I needed to follow my ambition and dream. And academically, yes, I struggled, but stepping onto that stage, I just remember thinking, my goodness, this is amazing. Having all these people watching me in this play, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Just quickly, when I left school, I went back into education and I started doing drama, and that's where I met Ron. And Ron Gittings was my mentor. He's now passed away. And we started working on my voice, overcoming some of the problems I had as a child. We talked about life skills. We talked about Shakespeare, drama, theatre. We traveled around the UK going to art galleries. And it wasn't long after that I graduated by going to drama school with an Oxford diploma. So that's when my career began, really.
That's really nice how you were able to gain that confidence from performing.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that, and I inspire young people, when we look back, or young people look back at where they've come from, certainly people with ADHD or hyperactivity or Asperger's, they suddenly realize that actually it doesn't have to be a barrier. Because when you look at society, or you look at the entertainment industry, or politicians, or things like education, there are many high-profile people who have Asperger's, have ADHD, have mental health issues, but it doesn't prevent them from moving forward. In fact, some of the most successful people in our industry, whatever that sphere is, whether that's educational, medicine, the entertainment industry, there are brilliant people out there who have had problems when they were growing up with the things I've mentioned. So it shouldn't be a barrier. But I was fortunate that I got the help from Ron Gittings and a youth worker. And I think that was one of the best things really that happened to me, because it was very difficult growing up. I mean, I couldn't spell. I found it very difficult to pronounce certain words. I was discriminated over my voice, but I didn't allow that to affect my ambition and goal in life. And so getting an Oxford diploma was a huge achievement in my own life, because being at school, I just found it so difficult when people put questions in front of me or asked me to spell, or we did a spell test or a maths test. I was at the bottom of the class. I couldn't really do much, and it frustrated me. But as I said to you at the beginning, when I stepped onto that stage, performing in that first play, A Christmas Carol, as that child that looks up at the window and Scrooge shouts down, "Go and buy me a turkey," with this money, I felt this is what I want to do. So yeah,
That's nice how that was nice how it was like a click of like, wow, I really enjoy this, and this is something that really inspires me.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important as well that, you know, we've come a long way because I'm 56. I've been acting a long time. And I think we've developed a lot in not only the arts, but also in medicine, in how we support people with, difficulty in learning at school. And I think that's good. And I think they've achieved so much when we look at the education system and those departments in schools. And I think young people need that today, don't they? We need to
Yeah, exactly.
we need to identify what the problem. See, when I was growing up in the 70s, we didn't have the departments or the structure that we see today in modern schools. We just didn't. So when teachers looked at me, they probably assumed I was rebellious, and actually I had problems. And it's frustrating when you are trying to explain to a teacher that you find it difficult to spell or do maths or uh, read from a book of questions. And I'm just glad, really, because I've traveled around a lot of schools and I've seen how wonderful they are with people who have ADHD or Asperger's or other issues.
Yeah, it's good that they've got the support that they can have now.
Absolutely. And I always encourage people, certainly young people, that no matter what background you come from, you can achieve so much in your life. And look at you two. You're here interviewing me. What an achievement. I mean, I've worked in radio for many, many years, certainly for BBC as well. And I think it's absolutely marvelous that young people are getting involved in the arts. The arts, culturally, are very important to our growth and development as young people. We need the arts in schools. And sadly, some schools don't even have drama classes. And I've been talking to people in certain schools, and I didn't have a lot of drama in my school. But it's something that we have to, understand, that the arts are suffering at the moment in the UK. And the more funding we put in, the more young people will enjoy the arts. I mean, I was fortunate. When I left drama school, I started doing smaller roles in British soaps, like Coronation Street, playing the CID or Hollyoaks. And that gave me a wonderful opportunity to understand how television works, being in front of the camera, how to work with other actors. And it's a great training ground. And because you can learn a lot at drama school, you can. But when you get outside, the real work starts, you begin to learn so much, and it's really doing it, getting out there and getting your hands dirty and getting involved in theatre or television or radio, where you really do develop and you really do become more confident. So yeah. And what was really interesting for me as an actor was I started off doing the soaps, doing short, I say small roles. But in 2012, something happened. I remember getting a phone call from a director who wanted me to play Colin Jarvis, who was head of social services. And I said yes, read the script. I loved it. And that was my first big break into the films. And it was an award-winning film, which can still be seen on Amazon Prime. It was called For Love's Sake. And from then on, really, I started doing lots of Shakespeare. I did Chekhov, Brecht, and moved back into television and film. So it's been a long journey, a very long journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you've already said some some of the stuff you've been in, but can you tell us a little bit about what you've been in and the roles you have played?
Absolutely. So over the last few years, I've been focusing on predominantly television and film. So I did an American film, which I filmed here in front of a green screen. And I played, if I can remember it, Captain Lucius Cartier of the USS Miranda. So it's more of a sci-fi. So that's in post-production, and I'm waiting to see that. It could be this year or next year. I then did another sci-fi called The Last Exodus, where I played Minister of Defense. That's in post-production. I did On the Banks of the Royal Blue Mersey, which is a play, a brilliant play with a great cast. It's all about the history of Everton Football Club, which I narrated. I just finished a musical called On the Banks of the Royal Blue. Oh no, what was it? Under the Mersey Moon. It was called Under the Mersey Moon, which was a musical playing Kenny. So that was wonderful. And I'm doing a sequel to a film I did 2 years ago called The Death of Michael Myers. And I'm looking forward to that. I played Dr. Lanford. And finally, a busy year, I'm actually involved in a project of a play called Breaking Free, which is based on my autobiography I wrote in 2008. And it's really about the things I've already mentioned previously about growing up in the 80s, having difficulties at school, becoming an actor, meeting my mentor. And that's actually gone off now to become a screenplay with a BAFTA director and a brilliant producer. So that's in the pipe works for a feature film based on my life. We haven't got the title for that yet, but the title for the play version is called Breaking Free. So it's been a busy year.
Wow.
Doing plays and doing theatre. But you know, it's important. I say this to a lot of young people. You can get an agent, which is wonderful. You can have all the support you want from your mentors, your school. But what's also vital and important, and I say this to young people, is not only follow your dreams, but also make sure that you do the exams that you feel are appropriate for you, because it's always a positive thing to leave school with some qualifications. Because when you're involved in the entertainment industry and you're involved in acting or dancing or singing, sometimes you have periods of silence, really. They're quite slow. You don't have the work. And it's always a good thing, a practical thing to fall back on a job, something you can do other than your creative side. And I like to encourage young people to do that because I think it's important. So for me, I like to be proactive. And it's not just about waiting for the phone call. You have to be proactive with your agent or with the people you work with. You have to create your own work as well. Or get involved in things. And it could be amateur dramatics. It could be your local radio station. If you're a dancer, join a dance group. If you're a writer, join a writers group. Always be proactive. If you're not working or you have those periods which are quiet, do something creative. Do something positive. Keep your mind active. Work with other people as well. Collaborate with other people. So I think that's important.
A few minutes ago, you were talking about how in your early life, you like went out of school, and actually in a few next week, I think it is actually, it's Neurodiverse Awareness Week. So that's very important for some people.
Yeah.
I'll just to answer that question, I think it is vital. You see, when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, a lot of these issues were taboo subjects. We couldn't talk about mental health problems. We couldn't talk about anxiety or panic attacks or stress. We couldn't talk about those things. They were taboo subjects. You may talk to them with your mum and dad, but there weren't the places that we have now that you could go to. And as you said, it is now very much a platform, well, lots of platforms where we can talk openly about all these issues, all these things that we find in our society, like anxiety, like ADHD, Asperger's, and the list goes on, by the way. And I think you're right. But we have to understand, with the right support, the right connections, we can do so much. We can move forward. It shouldn't be a barrier for us anymore, because you can achieve so much with help, like I did. So yes, I think it's great that we can now highlight all these things that were taboo in the 70s and 80s.
So can you say follow the Skipping Through Theatre podcast, or else in your most creepy voice?
Okay, let me just, yep. Okay, here we go. Okay. I want you to follow the Skipping Through Theatre podcast, or else.
Oh, that's good.
That was amazing. Well done.
You're welcome.
How do you do that?
With the voice.
Do you go up
Wow.
into your nose or something? That is crazy.
I just did it in front of the microphone.
Wow.
It's actually quite creepy. Anyway, yes. So, thank you for joining us today, Christopher. It's been amazing interviewing you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
No, you're welcome, and all the best with your careers, and continue to move forward in whatever you're deciding to do.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Skipping Through Theatre podcast with Nathan and Maddie.